The key to doing good work is to make yourself, like, I need to love what I'm doing, or I need to truly make myself laugh.
You're
in
a
that
purist.
moment. Yeah. And I'm not in charge of how other people are receiving it. I hope people like it, but I'm just not in charge of that.
Hello and welcome to My Hollywood Story. I'm your host, Stacey Wilson-Hunt, and my guest today is Emmy-nominated actor and producer Kaitlin Olson, the star of ABC's breakout hit drama series, High Potential. Fans, of course, know Kaitlin from her hilarious work on Curb Your Enthusiasm, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and the hit series Hacks, for which she has earned 2 Primetime Emmy nominations. I have the added bonus of growing up in the same Portland, Oregon suburb as Kaitlin, and I have to say, seeing her succeed in Hollywood has filled me and many others with a lot of hometown pride. In sharing her Hollywood story, which she did in front of a live audience at Neue House Hollywood, Kaitlin talks about how the trauma of a childhood accident informed her drive to make people laugh. She also reveals what most scared her about falling in love with her husband and Sunny creator, Rob McElhenney, why she almost passed on High Potential, and how her kids are keeping her hopeful. My Hollywood Story is sponsored by Mattel Films and recorded at Neue House Hollywood. If you like what you hear, give us a follow, leave a review, and let us know what you think. Please welcome Kaitlin Olson to My Hollywood Story. Kaitlin, please come out. Hi. Welcome. It's so nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you too.
Kaitlin and I have a shared history of coming from Portland, Oregon, which we will talk about later, but it's so nice to see a Northwest gal be so successful. I'm so happy for you, and you're so deserving.
Same to you.
Thank you. And on that note, how has it felt to see High Potential resonate so deeply with viewers? And I have to say, this is one of the biggest network hits in recent history. No small feat in the streaming era.
I know. It's crazy. It's very weird. It's such an honor. It's really nice to be able to, contribute to that. I love when network TV works, because I have such a fond memory of being with my family and like
me too. It was appointment television.
It was appointment, yes, and like the Wizard of Oz would come around once a year, and it was the greatest day of the year. We'd like stay up late and get popcorn, and so such an honor. I'm really, really happy.
And now you are the face of a successful network show. We'll talk about the pressures of that later. That is not a small thing. But because we want to start at the beginning on this podcast, your Hollywood story begins in Portland, Oregon.
Yes. Tell
me how it came to be that you were born in Portland, Oregon.
I don't know. That's where my parents, did it. And then I came out, and then...
in that quick of a time frame.
Yeah, it was really fast. I don't know. I had nothing to do with it. But then we moved away to Washington for a little bit, and then we lived on Vashon Island, which was a little tiny island.
And what? I have to say, I love Vashon. I go there frequently. Mm-hmm. What was Vashon like back then? It's not really inhabited. It's actually a very rustic place.
It was very rustic then, too. We would get in a boat and go fishing for salmon, and that's what we would have for dinner. On weekends, we would go to some sort of an orchard. We'd get apples, and we'd make applesauce. We would go. I mean, it was like we lived
Sounds
off
like
the land.
You had a hippie childhood, Kaitlin.
Very much so. Yes, I did have a hippie childhood.
I love that. I love hippie childhoods.
Yeah.
And when you settled back in Oregon, what kind of kid were you at this point? I speak to a lot of actors who say, I was shy. A lot of actors say, I couldn't get enough attention. Where were you in that spectrum?
Very shy. I was very shy. Like you said, Vashon, it had people, but it wasn't that inhibited.
It's like farmland.
Very much, yeah. And I went to a tiny little school with maybe like 10 kids.
Kind of like Little House on the Prairie a little bit.
Yeah, yes. So when I moved to Tigard, the school seemed huge. Now I think it would probably look small, but the school seemed huge. And I just remember being so nervous. There were so many kids, and trying to play wall ball with a girl at recess, and another girl came up and was like, do not play with her. If you play with her, no one's going to ever talk to you. And I was like, oh my God, what?
What are the politics of this big city?
Exactly. I was like, oh, there are rules, and I don't know any of them, and I have got to pay attention.
Kind of like Mean Girls, where Lindsay Lohan's character was in Africa and had to reacclimate to America.
That's exactly what I was. I was in Africa, and I came back, and everyone was a wild animal trying to eat me.
Kind of like Hollywood, but we'll get to that later. And tell me about your parents. I do remember meeting them because your brother Josh was my friend. Really great kid, really smart. And your parents were both very accomplished in very different ways. Tell me about them.
My dad was a publisher. My mom was an emergency room nurse for a long time, and then she became an herbalist and started her own company called Earth Mama Organics, and that became wildly successful, and very much a woman who likes to be in the garden. Prefers plants over people.
By the way, who could blame her?
I know. I get it. I prefer animals over people, except you guys.
Except everyone in this room.
Yeah. They were just really wonderful, supportive, loving, caring, liberal, progressive people who just encourage us to be our best versions of ourselves and really supported anything that we wanted to do.
That's a real gift. And I think we realize as we get older, not everyone has that experience.
Absolutely.
I had the same experience. It's very special.
I'm very, very grateful for them.
Me too. And your shyness sort of persisted, but when did it shift for you where you were able to set that aside and actually perform? And then how did that feel to be able to perform?
I was always comfortable only when I was performing. I wasn't comfortable walking around in school. It just got worse from that horrible elementary school for me. It was, middle school's hard and high school's hard. And I got sucked up in the mean girls crowd where I was the nice girl and I was the one who was always picked on. And I just remember laying awake at night just going over stuff you can do and stuff you can't do, and just felt so bad. Like I look back at that girl right now and I'm like, I wish somebody would have grabbed her and been like, no, just look them in the face and tell them to go fuck themselves. That's it. That's the trick.
And imagine how hard it is today. I mean, you have two kids, so this has gotten so difficult for kids.
It's really, I'm reliving it all over again. My kids are 13 and 14. They're boys, and there is a different dynamic with boy friendships and versus girl friendships. But it's still hard. It's still hard to be growing and changing, and your body's changing, and your face is changing, and you get a bad haircut, and people make fun of you because kids are mean. And it's just, I was so sensitive. I think that's what it is. I wasn't able to let things roll off my back. I was a very, very sensitive person.
Which can be a gift, but as a kid is kind of a liability sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I look back, and I mean, I'm a huge empath, and I'm very sensitive, and that's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm sure. But it was hard to be a kid through that. And so I wanted to join plays, audition for plays in junior high, but I was too scared. And then I just got the nerve in high school, finally. And that's just where I was always most comfortable. I'm most comfortable in a huge crowd versus like one-on-one, which I think is weird for some people, but it makes perfect sense to me.
It's actually pretty common among performers. Yeah. And it makes sense. There's a security to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also it's a crowd, and I'm more thinking about what I'm outputting. And when it's one-on-one, I get sucked into that sensitive thing where I'm like, I turn into your energy.
Well, and you're a caretaker too.
Yes, for
and
sure.
You probably got that from your parents.
Yeah.
And you have shared that you had a very scary experience when you were 12. You had a bike accident. I was curious what you learned about yourself during that recovery process, because I imagine there was a lot of downtime, a lot of self-reflection, and also what brought you comfort during that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. My accident was, it just really like disfigured my face, and I had a shaved head, but not fully shaved. It was like just a big round, like shaved circle, like a friar tuck on the top of my head, which is a beautiful look going into junior high school.
Especially at age 12.
Oh my gosh. The boys were just scrambling to get to me. I think the recovery time really was many years. So the reflection really was sadly just, okay, you're, and I'm not being melodramatic. It was, you're hideous, and you're never going to be attractive. And so you'll probably never get married, but that's okay because you're a really good person. You'll have friends. You'll have a lot of animals. And like, it was all that stuff. Like I remember going through all of that in my head because it was just the time I was going through puberty too.
It's a really rough time for something like that to happen.
Yeah. So I was like that, over the years, I was like, okay, that's okay. You'll just have really good friends.
Did you feel like you had support, obviously wonderful parents, but did you feel like you had someone to share these feelings with?
No, just my parents. Yeah. Okay. No, I didn't have, my friends were just mean. I had one friend who I was friends with before the accident, and I went over to her house. I remember it was a snow day, and I spent the day at her house, and we were laying on the floor, and she had her hair like this, and she was playing with her hair, and she goes, God, I don't know what I would do if I ever lost my hair. I think I would kill myself.
Oh boy.
What? That's first of all, that's the dumbest thing. But I was like, and I had to pretend that I didn't know that she was talking about me. It was just weird, like weird psychological, like torture.
I'm so sorry you went through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay.
I have a feeling not that you wouldn't be talented today, but there's an added layer of emotional resonance that you probably bring to your work because of this.
Listen, it sucked at the time, and I don't regret it for a second. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, I didn't have anything else to lean on other than humor. I still was funny. I still made my parents laugh. And so, I don't regret it for a second. It's hard as a mom now watching my kids go through certain things, less dramatic, less physical, but just trying to explain that, like, you're going to make it through this, and you're going to look back and be like, oh, I can do anything. I also, now that I'm thinking about it, I do believe that is also why I feel very invincible physically. I'm happy to do,
as we have seen from Sunny.
I'm happy to, because I'm like, you can't hurt me. I've been really hurt, and now I'm careful about it. That was just a freak accident. So yeah, I don't regret it for a second. It's not a sad thing anymore. It's a good thing.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Very personal and very inspiring. I'd like to say a very special thank you to Neuhaus for being the exclusive venue partner of My Hollywood Story. Neuhaus is a gorgeous private work and social space for creators, innovators, and thought leaders to connect in Los Angeles and New York. As a Neuhaus member myself, I can tell you firsthand how amazing it is to work inside such iconic, beautifully designed buildings, while also enjoying elevated hospitality and thought-provoking cultural experiences. To me, Neuhaus has completely redefined the ideal environment for creative potential and progress. To learn more and apply for membership, visit neuhaus.com. So when did acting as a full-time job become a dream for you? Was it when you went to University of Oregon, or was it before that where you started to think, wow, I can actually do this as a job?
I really honestly remember being in first grade talking about how I was going to be an actor. That never changed. My mom, I don't remember this, but she sent me a booklet that I made in first grade where I drew pictures, and it was all about how I was going to be on TV, and then I would make people laugh, and I would do theater and all this stuff. So.
And who were your heroes growing up? People you looked to and thought, oh, if I can do what he or she does, that's a dream.
Carol Burnett was a really big one. I loved that she was fearless and so funny and played like loud, like unapologetic.
She seemed vanity free.
Vanity free. That's a great way to put it. That again was like so inspiring to me, because it was like, yeah, every other woman on TV was like on Dallas or something, and it was like
they always had to be beautiful.
They always had to be beautiful. You weren't going to get cast unless you were beautiful, and I wasn't. And I really had a deep belief that I never would be. And then I saw Carol Burnett doing her thing, and I was like, that's so much better. And I still think it is.
I love her. And whose posters were on your wall of your bedroom?
Madonna. Never any boys.
A lot of cool women. Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah.
Madonna.
Cyndi Lauper I did have. Madonna. But then it was mostly like I couldn't put posters on the wall because I had to have my own built-in rod where I put all my yarn for friendship bracelets. So it was more crafty than...
well, it's that hippie upbringing.
That's right. You make your own bracelets, guys, and you fish for your own dinner.
So many talents you had as a young person. So when you decided to go to
Have
university...
you ever made a friendship bracelet? It's really not that hard.
Well, I'm just going to pretend it was hard to give you more credit.
Thank you.
I wore a few. I don't know if I actually made any. And when you decided to go to U of O, what informed that decision versus moving far away from home?
Honestly, what informed that decision was that I did not want to leave home, but I had to.
Your parents are like, it's time for you to go, Kaitlin. You must leave.
They were like, don't go. And I was like, I don't want to go. And I guess I have to go to college. And my parents went to the University of Oregon, and my brother was there. So it was safe. I really was a very late bloomer and a very emotional kid and very attached to my family. And I also knew that, I wanted to go to theater school, but whatever. I mostly just wanted to have a college education. I don't think that I was like, I have to find the best acting school so I can learn things. I was like, and this sounds so lame, but I really was like, I got this. Like, I know what I'm doing.
So you sort of had confidence in the career aspirations, but the sort of social education that comes from college was a priority for you.
Yeah, and I also wanted to be a woman with a college education. That part was important to me.
That's a good goal. Mm-hmm. And what did you learn in school training-wise that not only that you still use in your craft, but that helped you when you moved to Los Angeles?
Just the experience alone of doing different kinds of plays. I did mostly comedy in high school, and I did a lot more dramatic stuff and it was a big Shakespeare school, so
because Ashland is nearby, so
yep.
the Shakespeare Festival.
That's right. Yeah, we had some big like Shakespeare guys. In fact, I was like, can we bring somebody in from like Los Angeles? And they looked at me like I was disgusting.
How dare you?
I know. I was like, never mind. I'm sorry. I'll just shut my mouth and get my degree and move.
Well, and to that point, were there kids in your acting classes who were like, I'm going to move to Los Angeles, or was it really more of that theater aspiration?
Yeah, they all wanted to go to Chicago or New York. Okay. Yeah.
And when you graduated, were you one of those people who packed your car and drove down?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I packed my mom's Jeep and drove down. I did.
And did you have a plan upon arrival?
Not really, but my best friend from college, who I met in college, grew up in the Palisades. And so he was going to be moving back home. So I knew I had someone in town. And then my boyfriend at the time had a cousin who was living in Manhattan Beach, and she said I could stay at her place while I looked for an apartment. But I did not have a plan at all. And it was terrifying.
Well, I have to say, for a kid who was that shy, that's a big move.
It is a big move.
That's a really bold thing to do.
Thank you.
After college. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. That's the weird thing. My brother still makes fun of me. He's like, how could someone who doesn't like people looking at them have a job as an actor? I'm like, I don't know. I get that it doesn't make sense, but I'm an introvert and I also love performing.
They can coexist.
I guess so.
And tell me when the Groundlings became part of your life.
Pretty soon after I moved here, we so again my friend Josh Nathan, and I auditioned for the Groundlings, and he was so funny. We spent all of our time together and we just made each other laugh, and we auditioned together and got in together. So I did have like a friend that I could cling to. And
were you competitive with him?
No,
just supportive.
No, not at all. Yeah, it to me there was just two different things. Yeah. I'd like to say that I'd still feel like that if he was a woman. I'd like to say that I love and support my. I mean, I certainly do now. Yeah, I think there's room for everyone. I think I was proud of the fact that he was so funny. I was proud of the fact that we were both really good in that class.
And what did you have to do to audition? I'm sure the rigor has changed since then.
Probably.
What was the assigned audition for Groundlings?
You just went in and you were in like a classroom setting and you just played improv games. Okay. Yeah. And then later on it turned into sketch writing and improv. Okay.
And you were accepted into the Sunday class.
Yeah, the Sunday company. So there's 4 classes that you work your way up, and you either advance or you don't all the way along. And that took about 5 years.
Okay. And you have to pay to do this.
You do.
Okay.
You do. You got to pay. Yeah.
This isn't a job. This is an expense.
Yeah, quite an expense. And also you're working 3 part-time jobs just to be able to support this.
This is back before Uber existed. You're probably waiting tables, all the old gigs.
I refused because everyone was like, "Oh, what do you want to do?" I was like, "I want to be an actor." Where do you wait tables? And I was like, "Well, I'm going to do anything but wait tables then."
So what did you do to support yourself?
Okay, I worked as a recruiter for a biotech company.
Naturally.
Yeah. I was really, really faking it. That was
the performance of your
career.
Quite a
performance. Yeah. I was just reading off of like, a piece of paper, trying to like interview people from like huge biotech
This
companies.
sounds like a Sweet Dee job. This sounds like a job that Sweet Dee had and lost within the same episode.
She would have had so much more fun with it than I did. I was just like, and then I had to, like, if I got a candidate that really had potential, I had to meet them up in Thousand Oaks and take them out to dinner and discuss the job and then like take them to Amgen. I was like, I do not belong here. Nothing's ever made me feel dumber. So I don't know, I white knuckled my way through that. And then I worked at a hair salon. I was a receptionist, and I worked at a very cute little boutique called Glisten. Yeah.
Very multifaceted.
Yeah.
And did I read correctly that Dax Shepard was also in your company?
Yep.
Okay. What do you remember about Dax? What were your first impressions of him?
He was very funny. And the 3 of us, Josh and Dax and I, became very good friends. And Dax actually lived pretty close to me, so we would often ride there together. And yeah, we were very good friends. And I think we were in the Sunday company together, but I think we were also in like the 4th level together. So we were together for a long time in there.
And did I read correctly that you did a USO tour?
I did.
And where did you go? That's so fascinating.
I went to Bosnia and Kosovo and Norway. That was for
It's an interesting
officers.
trio.
Yeah.
So obviously there's been a long history of Saturday Night Live casting out of Groundlings. Was that ever a dream for you?
Yeah.
Okay. And what happened with that dream?
I think what happened is that I started working. And when I started working, I wasn't able to crank out as many sketches. You were supposed to come every Wednesday with like 10 sketches, and then we would all showcase our sketches, and then the director would choose, a handful of new ones to add to that Sunday's show, because every Sunday was new unless you had like a hit, and then that would stay. So I'd have like a few hits that would stay, but I started showing up on Wednesdays with less and less stuff because I was
That was a good problem to have.
I
That's the whole
thought so,
goal,
but they
right?
didn't like it.
Okay.
And again, in the Sunday company, you're still paying dues. It's not a job. Never a job. And also, I believe I was on snack duty. So I was paying dues and going grocery shopping for them every week. I was done at the Groundlings after that. And then really, honestly, it is, when you put all of your energy into something, I mean, that's all we cared about. All we cared about was sketches and writing and getting a new sketch in the show and like making it into the main company. And when you take that away, you still have all that energy going somewhere. So that I just fully leaned into auditioning and started working and realizing that I wanted to host Saturday Night Live and not be on Saturday Night Live. I didn't want to do sketches anymore.
It's almost like you had just wrapped your own version of SNL.
Yeah.
And you had already graduated from that.
And I wrote so many sketches and did so many characters that I loved and was really proud of. And I was mortified to be like asked to leave. It's not like I got fired. They weren't paying me.
Did you have to go before a panel?
No, they don't ever you never even meet or talk to these people. It's just the main company Groundlings going, okay, we'll take that person, and then we'll take that person, and then we'll take that person, and that's it. The rest are done. Wow. So, I mean, that's a system, and it's an amazing training ground, and I wanted so desperately to be in the main company, and I have to say it's another one of the greatest things that's happened is that I had to take that energy and put it elsewhere.
You had to do what was best for you.
Yeah.
This episode of My Hollywood Story is brought to you by the Starz drama series Outlander. Katrina Balfe and Sam Heughan star in the romantic fantasy epic and long-running fan phenomenon. Outlander, for your Emmy consideration for Outstanding Drama Series and streaming now on the Starz app. So obviously a lot of people, and specifically in comedy, get discovered on Instagram, on TikTok. This clearly was not the case back then.
No.
How did people get to be seen, first of all, if they weren't even part of the Groundlings troupe? And also, how did you get representation, which today remains the biggest hurdle of having a career?
Yeah, I feels like I was just being shitty to the Groundlings, and I apologize because I did get a lot. I feel bad. I did. It was wonderful. And the way that I got into to a casting director's office is because I had the Groundlings on my resume, because nobody knows who you are, but they see that you're at a certain level in the Groundlings and they're like, okay, well, we'll give you an audition. So I can credit them for that. I was able to audition. Finding a manager and agent, you're correct. It is the number one. It's the number one thing that people ask. We're like, how do I get started? And it's like, I don't know.
It is the hardest question to answer.
It is. And I think you need to put yourself into positions where you are with a bunch of other people who are wondering the same thing, so you can brainstorm with each other. So I met a girl, a young woman named Shelly in the Groundlings at some point along the way. And we started writing on our own. And then we started doing like showcases. And she invited someone to see us at this showcase, and most people were doing pieces that they had, that were written by playwrights or whatever. And we wrote our own sketch, and it was really funny. And
what was it about?
It was about two really dumb girls who worked at a makeup counter, and they were taking everything really seriously, and like all these like stupid little things were like really upsetting to them, and they had to help people like fix their faces because they were doing a service.
They were doing God's work.
They were doing God's work, yeah. I met the woman that she had invited, ended up signing me, and she was my manager for a very long time.
It's when I hear people tell those kind of stories about how they got representation, whether it's 15, 20 years ago or whatever, it really is increasingly rare for that kind of organic meeting of people who want to work together and support each other. It feels so incredibly rare today.
It really does. And I remember when I was doing it, there were all these people who were getting together and putting shows together and renting out small little theaters in Hollywood and, and then passing out flyers. And it was a struggle, but it was a creative one. And you were working and you were figuring it out. And also there's joy in just performing. So whether the goal was to get representation or not, you were still putting your energy towards something that you loved to do. And yeah, I don't know what people are doing these days. I get asked that a lot. I'm like,
it's very hard to give advice.
It's hard to give advice because everyone's path is different. And I remember people saying that to me when I was asking for it and being like, just give me the advice. And the truth is, I don't know. You just put yourself in situations where people are asking the same questions. So just being, in a tiny little theater troupe or an acting class or anything like that, you just kind of have to jump in and ask around and open your eyes.
It's true. And leaning into Winston Churchill's advice, never, ever, ever give up.
That's right. You just keep going. And
I think I'm paraphrasing, by the way. Don't quote me on that. But
there might have been a couple other evers in there.
Yes.
Yeah. And trying to enjoy the process.
Which is really hard.
Very hard.
Really hard.
But when you love performing and your goal isn't to be famous or to make a bunch of money, but you love performing, it's much easier because you're still performing. You may not have found a manager that night, but you just got to do what you love.
So true. That is the dream. So tell me about Curb Your Enthusiasm and how you were cast. Did you audition for Allison Jones, the amazing casting director?
No, it was Marla Garland.
Marla.
Yep.
Okay.
And Larry was there, and we read together. And then, there's no dialogue. It was terrifying. It was terrifying.
So you walk in the room, and then what happens?
You walk in the room not knowing what you're going to do, which is my nightmare. I tell my kids all the time, don't be afraid to fail. Just fail. It's great. It's how you learn. Like, who cares? I do not like to fail. Yeah. I do not like to be unprepared.
Especially in an audition.
No. It was unheard of going to an audition completely unprepared. It was awful.
But did they tell you, don't prepare, just walk in the room?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't give you anything. And so they tell you once you're, and same with when you're shooting the show. He doesn't tell you what's going on in the show. He just says, do you want to come and do this episode? And you're like, what am I going to be doing? And he's like, I'll let you know when you get here.
So what did you do in the audition that impressed them?
Yelled at him.
Was it an actual scene from an upcoming? This was for Becky.
This was
Cheryl's
for Becky.
Sister.
Yeah, and no, it was he just explained who I was in relation to him, and that we did not get along, and that I was upset about.
That's
something.
assumed if it's Larry.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I had an idea, and I love yelling. I find it very funny, and Larry loves being yelled at. It is a hallmark
of your career now
really
that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. You need a loud lady who's angry, specifically with a man.
And what do you remember saying to Larry in the audition?
I don't remember. I mean, it was
berating him in some fashion. Just being creative with my insults without swearing is always very funny to me. It's easy to swear.
It's too easy to swear. I'm trying to get this across to my teenage boys. I'm like, it's so much funnier when you choose another word that's dumb and be really mad at the same time. Right. I don't remember. I just remember yelling at him and finding ways to be appalled at whatever the situation was.
Which again, for his character, very easy.
Yeah, and he was down. He cannot handle being yelled at without laughing.
Now, did he laugh?
Yes, he was cracking up.
Oh,
and so
you must have felt very proud of yourself.
Then I just was like,
more, please.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Let's do this for 20 more minutes.
So the first episode in which you appeared was Beloved Aunt. Very funny, the funeral of your aunt. So tell me just the nuts and bolts of, you show up on set, you know it's the funeral scene, then what guidance, if any, do you have in that moment?
You literally get into hair and makeup and then go to set, and he explains. He comes around at some point and tells you what's going on and what the premise is, what your point of view is, and then you just rehearse by starting the scene, and then you've got all these comedians who have funny things to say, who are dying to get their stuff in. So everyone's just talking over each other.
Was it a lot of competition?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, what do you mean?
I mean, just in terms of people trying to
talk,
insert, do their thing, do their bit.
Yeah. And I think the beauty is keeping your mouth shut and listening and then throwing something in when you have it. And which most of the time is what happened. But if, you get a big scene with a lot of guest cast, it's just a lot of talking. And then so we do it again, and Larry says what he does like and doesn't like, and then you're going to say that and say that thing, and then you do it again, and then you shoot it a few times and move on.
That is hard to imagine.
Yes, but a million times better than an improv game. I, in the Groundlings, loved the sketch comedy part, loved creating a character. Again, don't like not knowing what I'm doing. So it was terrifying to walk out and be like, give me a word, and I got to figure everything else out. I hate that.
At least you had context. You had the story. You had a bunch of actors.
I know who my character is. I know my point of view. I know that I don't like him. I know what's going on in the scene. I just have to come up with the dialogue. That's my favorite thing. So wow. I loved it.
So you are a writer. I mean, you can't do this job without being a writer.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I've written, yes.
What did you learn on Curb that you took with you to Sunny?
Maybe. Is that where I learned the louder the better, maybe? I think that was just always inside
Being antagonized by men within the scene. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I maybe one of the things is, you find out who you're working with and what it is that they do well, and you give them space to do that, and encourage each other. It was a very collaborative environment, and back then things were not collaborative. There was a writer, a bunch of writers, a director, and you do what you're told. And if you mix up the words, they back you up, and they're like, "Ooh, you flip those words around." And I'm like,
so there was a lot of preciousness about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there was no script on Curb. And so it's just so freeing. And I think it's such a wonderful lesson. You hire people who are good at what they do, and you let them do what they do. And sometimes the scene will change a little bit because this person brought something better to it. And Rob, is a big believer in that. And it's the first time.
Sorry, Rob who?
Oh, McElhenney, McElhenney.
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, he that's what he encouraged me to do, and so you pivot. I mean,
but just allowing people to do what they're good at doing.
Yeah,
it seems very basic.
It does seem.
But we've all been in situations professionally, whether in Hollywood or not, where you see people exerting power.
Yes.
And then ruining the end product.
Yeah, there's a lot of ego involved, but you can easily see. I mean, that's why people do table reads. Once you have something up on its feet and you have the people who you hired doing it, things change. Or a joke may not be landing. You have to be able to pivot. Or you're just going to force something. And I think that I think you can see when you watch Sunny that it feels different. It's pretty clear that we're playing around sometimes rather than your line, your setup, and I give the joke. And there's value in that too, but it was so different.
It's not the show they wanted to make.
Not the show they wanted to make, yeah.
So I have to talk about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia hitting a milestone this summer, the 20th anniversary of the premiere.
Yes.
Which is unbelievable.
Yeah,
and in
crazy.
2021, you guys broke the record with your 15th season to become the longest running live action comedy in history. How does this feel, Kaitlin Olson?
It felt wonderful, but I also feel a little weird. It felt wonderful. It's amazing. We also do 10 episodes a season. So it's not like
Don't discount your accomplishments.
But I just always, that's me. It's fine.
It's a basic cable season, okay? It's not 25
Okay,
episodes.
Great. There you go. Yeah. But we did beat the network.
And so second only to Simpsons as animated series.
As animated, yes.
It's a great company to keep.
I love it. We beat Ozzie and Harriet, I believe.
I mean, and so much connective tissue between your shows, by the way.
Yeah.
Family values, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So you mentioned Rob McElhenney, who also happens to be your life partner. Wonderful man. And you have said that when he was pitching the show so wisely, quote, "You can't explain tone, so you may as well shoot it yourself," which is brilliant. And today remains, I think that still holds true.
Yeah.
When FX bought the show and they knew they needed a girl character, to use your words, what was that audition process like? And how much of the show existed? And was it similar to Curb where they kind of knew what was coming up and you stepped in? And what did you actually do on the audition to sway them?
I was funny.
And you were a woman, which was different from the rest of the cast.
Yeah, that's true. So they had just shot that pilot on their own.
Right, the proof of concept.
Yes, exactly. And they had sold it to FX. They had written 4 episodes, I believe. And when I got the material, I was just so excited because it was so funny. And the audition was also very different from anything I'd done before. The casting director was there, but he just didn't really do much because Rob and Charlie and Glenn were there, and Nick Frankel, who's their manager, producing partner, and I read with Charlie, which is like, if you're reading in a scene with someone who's such a genius, it's such a breath of fresh air, because I can't help it if I'm reading a scene, I'm memorizing a scene, I'm imagining how the other person is going to do it. So sometimes you go and you read with someone who's just kind of dry, and I get really taken out of it. I can't help it. I start thinking about what I would be doing differently for them, even though I'm not
like giving them notes,
giving them notes in my head. Yeah. While also trying to perform. So to have Charlie there with me, it was just like such a dream, because we were just playing off of each other.
This was the Charlie has cancer scene.
Charlie has cancer.
Yes.
Yeah. I go in and ask for sugar, I think. And he tells me he has cancer. And I'm like,
and then you still ask for the sugar afterwards.
I just got to get that sugar, because we don't have any sugar. Yeah. And then the other thing that happened that had never happened to me before in an audition was Rob saying, okay, just put the sides down and then just say, do the scene again, but just say whatever you want. And I was like, okay. And
this audition, by the way, is on YouTube, which I watched this morning.
I would just pass.
It is remarkable. Not only are you absolutely hilarious, but they are in stitches. That is the best part.
Well, that's the best part too. Like when people are laughing at what you're doing, you just settle right into it, and they're just, that really is very representative of who they are too. They're so giving. And that's been something I've really taken with me for the rest of my life. Like no one was trying to like be the funniest person in the room. They were so proud of you for delivering such funny things to them so that they could react to it.
But they were also sort of underdogs. They weren't these established stars, and they knew they had made something weird and scrappy, and they wanted people who had the same ethos to be working with them.
Yes, they did. And then I passed on it because I passed on it when they offered it to me, because I asked to read this story's been out there, so I'll just skip it. But it was a scene between Charlie and Glenn. Right. And I was like, that's not even my scene, the scene that I fell in love with.
Because they didn't have good material for a female character.
They didn't have good material, so they just picked that. I didn't know that, and I read the first four episodes, and I was like, absolutely not. Why would I be the least funny part of a really, really funny show?
So how did you communicate that to them?
I just passed, and then I was sad, and then Rob called me, and we talked about it, and I just was like, I'm so in awe of these three very different, very distinct characters that you wrote that are so good, and I guess I just don't understand why you would make the fourth. I guess I see that maybe you need a voice of reason.
Also, maybe they just didn't know.
Well, that's what it was. They were like, we just wanted to cast someone and then get to know. Their writing process is paying attention to who you are and what you do well, and then writing to it. And so they were like, it was kind of just a place filler. And so we absolutely have every intention of writing your character just as robust and just as despicable as these guys.
That's the key right there.
Yeah.
She needs to be just as terrible as the rest.
Yes.
That is gender equity to me.
That's correct.
When the woman can be as big of an asshole as her male co-stars.
That's exactly right. And not the one who's like, you guys, you have to stop having fun. Who wants to watch that girl?
That is so boring. So obviously you worked out an agreement. You joined the show. Is there an episode that you cannot believe you got away with? Because I kind of can't believe you've gotten away with the show at large.
Yeah.
But in general, there are some episodes that I think not only would they not be made today, they would be received very differently.
Definitely. Times change.
Yes, they change. But still, I have to say there's no hatefulness in the comedy. It's always, you guys are always the butt of your own jokes.
Yes.
But some of the subjects are a little tricky.
Yeah.
So which ones do you feel like you maybe wouldn't have gotten away with today?
Well, the making of Lethal Weapon, 4, 5, 6, whatever. But I have to say, I watch those and I do appreciate the discussion that the characters have. Yes. They're idiots, right? Between about blackface and how it would be very disrespectful for Mac to be in blackface. So his solution, because he wants to play this character and pay homage to the actor, is to get made up completely into a black man, and how that's different from blackface. I mean, that's just a tricky discussion, and but it's a social commentary, and it's also discussion that people shy away from having. It's funny when you have little boys who want to have discussions like this, because they'll say things where you're like, "Oh, you can't say that," but they're not saying anything to be offensive. They're actually curious and asking questions.
Like, why can't we say it?
Yes, and it provides a space to talk about why you can't do that, and talk about the history. And so I don't know.
Times change.
Time has changed, and there are certain things that we would do differently. 20 years ago, the word tranny was not as horrible as it is now, and so we wouldn't do that.
Sure. And by the way, there isn't a comedy brand alive that hasn't made these kind of mistakes and also had to reflect on it now.
Yeah.
I was on the set of Sunny in 2009 when we first actually had the chance to sit down and talk. And I was there for, I don't know if you remember this, I was there for the couch episode.
Oh, yeah.
Where Danny is covered in oil. And
Lucky you.
I know. Got to explode through a couch in the Christmas episode. Still recovering. Tell me about working with Danny, who's I see him at Gelson sometimes because, of course, it's where we all see people. But he is a hero of mine, such a wonderful person. What is your favorite thing about having worked with him on the show?
Danny is such a gift to the world. Danny's one of those people who, if the cameras are rolling, you can always cut to him. It doesn't matter if he's talking or listening. He's probably chewing on something or fiddling with. He's always on. He always has a wonderful facial expression. He's just a dream. He's one of those people that just drops right into it, and it's just part of who he is. And he's also such a caretaker. He's constantly like, bring Kaitlin a box. She's standing. Like, he doesn't want me to he wants to take care of everyone. And we also, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We knew we were making a show we loved, but publicly, the fame part of it is very different, and not really nobody really knows what they're signing up for there. And so he was really such a mentor with that, and very protective of us. He's quite a dad on set.
That's so sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the familial aspect of the show, I was thinking about how when you and Rob decided to merge your personal and professional lives, I have to imagine that was not an easy thing to navigate.
It was only not easy in the beginning because I was very worried that, and so was he, we had this tiny little show that John Landgraf was keeping on the air because he believed in it.
Head of FX, great John Landgraf.
An incredible man with impeccable taste.
Incredible.
And we didn't want to blow it. And we knew that we had, I'd been in a handful of casts at this point. This one was very special. Every single person was so strong and was bringing everything. There was no weak link. It was very collaborative. We loved what we did. None of us were getting paid very well at all.
So there was no power play among salaries and that kind of thing.
No, and nor were we doing it for the money or for anything other than the fact that we loved this little thing that we had made. So to mess that up energetically and have things be weird on set if we had to go through a breakup, because I fell very hard for him. So it wasn't going to be like, oh, we just casually dated and then whatever, if it didn't work out, it's fine. I was deeply in love with him. And I was really, really worried about what that breakup would look like. But honestly, within a few months, we were so in love with each other that I, to be honest, was like, we're not breaking up ever.
The show's going to go on for 20 years. We have to stay together.
Yeah, that part I didn't know, but I knew we would be together forever. It was just I had enough boyfriends by then. It was like, oh yep, this is the one. So it was a little easier than you'd think, and once we told them, we felt a lot better because keeping it a secret.
Now, did your co-stars know?
They had no idea.
Really?
I was convinced that they knew.
Did you have to sit down and say, okay,
yes,
Charlie and Glenn, we have some news for you?
Yes. Yeah. Charlie and Mary Elizabeth we told together, and they were really happy for us. And Glenn was like, what? He was so confused because Rob and Glenn lived together. And so he'd come to work and be like, because Glenn and I are very close. So he'd come to work and tell me, he's like, he was out all weekend again with some other girl. He couldn't believe it. And I was like, no way.
You sound like a protective parent.
Crazy. I think he was jealous. I think he was jealous.
Rob is very handsome.
He's very handsome. And Glenn is very handsome as well. I think he was really confused why he wasn't having the same success. He's like, it's not like we're famous yet. Yeah, so that was just kind of funny and weird because I was like, oh, that's crazy.
It must have been a relief to be able to be open and share your love.
Yeah, it was. And then like working together is not weird because that's how we met, and we're very able to compartmentalize those two things. He's my boss, but he's a good boss. He's not like a bossy boss. He's just the guy who's handling everything, and he has like final say of stuff, and he's giving ideas, and that's how it's always been on Sunny. So it doesn't feel weird. Yeah.
And it must be amazingly, I guess, comforting to share the responsibility of navigating fame together and be able to, I mean, there's so many couples that have struggles because one person's in the business, the other isn't.
Yeah.
And navigating that is just really tough.
It has to be really tough. I know a few couples who are still very much in love but working on this exact same thing, or if someone's career takes off. But I will say I would be lying if you know what it is? I never thought that I would fall in love with an actor, because I don't even consider...
The look on your face says it all.
Also actresses. Like, I've told Rob, I was like, I would not be attracted to you if you were the kind of person who wanted to date an actress. And because I don't really see myself like, you know what I mean? But Rob really identifies as a writer and a producer and a director. And
I was going to ask, like, if he's at a party and someone doesn't know him, does he say he's a writer first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because his brain is just, we're very, very different. And my therapist says we're like two different sides of the same coin. Like at home, I'm in charge. And like,
you're the boss at home. He's the boss at work.
Yeah. I mean, that's not true. We obviously are both work together, but the only place we would ever butt heads is like a parenting thing where I'm like, no, you're not in charge here.
That's normal, and that's just fun married stuff.
Yeah. That's just part of navigating it.
Well, I'm very happy you found each other.
Me too.
And that he's good enough for our Kaitlin.
Thank you.
That's all we care about. And you've done a lot of really fun animation work. Family Guy, Brickleberry, Bob's Burgers, The Simpsons, and Finding Dory. I wanted to talk about how your kids have reacted to their finally being able to see something that mom makes because it isn't Sunny and not somewhat R-rated. Have they been impressed by any of these projects, and if so, which ones?
Well, they were really little when Finding Dory came out, and so that was very fun. In fact, I was pregnant with Leo when I was making it, and so they came to that premiere with me, which was so fun. And then now that they're teenagers, they are watching Sunny, and I'm not thrilled. And one of them is, one of them's not. But my 14-year-old, used to steal Sunny scripts, and like read them in his room. And I was like,
and did he offer any takeaways to you?
Yeah, he's got all kinds of notes. Yeah.
Uh-oh, watch out for him.
His first note is that Charlie's funnier than me. I know that.
Kids never appreciate their parents, even a kid who has great parents like Bob.
We have all been watching High Potential together, and that has been so much fun. They get really excited.
That is so great. And I do want to talk about the audience and how just it's so resonant with viewers because it is that appointment family viewing that we talked about. I do want to talk about one of my favorite shows that did not last long enough for me, which is The Mick.
Although he was a lot warmer.
He was cuddly and a little bit more doughy.
Yeah.
He was very doughy. But I really love the show, and the pilot is really one of, I think, a very, very strong pilot. Tell me what you learned on The Mick, because you were also a producer and, again, the face of a big network show, which I imagine was a learning curve. Tell me what that experience was like, and then having more input as a producer.
It was great. It was such a good experience. John and Dave Chernin wrote that show, and they had written on Sunny, so they wrote that for me, hoping that I would do it, and I didn't think that I wanted to do a network show. But I really fell in love with that character, and the writing was so spectacular. And yes, it was a much different thing. And we did have that exact same conversation a lot. There were three of us. They wrote it and they ran it, but I had to produce it because I had to. I don't think I'll ever not be able to produce because I'm very collaborative. I want to be able to talk things through and back off when I know nothing about a certain process. And so we had those conversations a lot where it was usually just a 2-against-1 tiebreaker, which was really great. And they
would call you in and say, okay, we need you.
Yeah, or they'd call me and say, oh, we both decided that we're going this way. And I was like, okay. But yeah, I was like, that's my face on the poster. And
how did that feel the first time you saw that?
Like Proud-wise? It was
just sort of like, was it scary?
It was really cool. The only thing that was scary was if this tanks, no one's going to go, oh, John and Dave Chernin made a dumb show. It'd be Kaitlin Olson made a bad show. But it was good scary. It really, I thrive with a chip on my shoulder. That's what forced me into this whole thing in the first place. So I always, everyone's doubted me. Always. Not my parents, but.
Really?
Yeah, because you grew
In
up
what way? Why do you think that is?
I think because you're from a tiny town in Oregon and you're like, no, I'm going to go and be like a successful actor. People are like, oh, okay.
Okay, Kaitlin, sure.
Oh, okay. You work at Pioneer Pies. Okay. So just a lot of that, or like sending graduation announcements in college. I don't know if people still do that, but.
I just received a few this week.
Did you? Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
Yes.
And like telling people what your plan is and just the look on people's face without them knowing they were doing it. Just like, oh, really? Oh. Or like my grandparents being like, what? But it definitely fueled me. So having my face be plastered all over town and having my kids see it and knowing that their kids' parents are going to see it. And yeah, I just showed up 100% ready to go every single day and just tried to always bring everything I can. I've never phoned anything in ever.
We can tell.
I hope
you put
so.
your whole body into it. So before we get to High Potential, I want to talk about my favorite comedy outside of all your other work, which is Hacks on Max, for which you've earned 2 Emmy nominations. There is something so special about this show, just from the ground up, the people who make it. And working with Jean must be an absolute dream. In fact, I know it is because everyone who works with her says she is just a model.
She is.
And this is someone who started in network television, has navigated Hollywood for decades, has tried her hand at features, has been on Broadway. There isn't anything she hasn't done. Mm-hmm. What wisdom have you gleaned from her?
I think just the fact that I recognize a lot of, you recognize a theater actor. There's just something about them. They just throw absolutely everything in. She is so giving. It doesn't matter if the camera's on her. If it's on me and she's in the scene with me, she's giving me 100%. And sometimes, that sounds like a no-brainer, but not everyone does that. She's fully in it with you. And she's also effusive with her compliments and her love. And she's such a wonderful role model of leading a show and welcoming a guest star in. It puts you so much at ease when that person is pointing out all the things that they love that you're doing, or some things that they love that you're doing. Not like you have to constantly be patted on the back, but she laughs freely. She hugs you. She's like, where did you come up? She's so giving. And it's a really good lesson in welcoming people to your set, because it's hard to go on someone else's set. It doesn't matter how seasoned you are. They're a family and you're walking into it. And yeah, she's a dream. She's wonderful.
And she's also from the Northwest. She's from Seattle. And I actually had the pleasure of doing an event with her last spring in Seattle, and her family came.
Oh, that's great.
And it must be sort of how you feel when you go home and you realize, I'm this thing in LA, I'm this other person, but these are my people.
Yes.
And it was so sweet to see her and think, oh, this is why she is the way she is.
Yeah.
She's from good people. She's grounded.
Definitely.
It's just very inspiring.
And I also believe another one who just loved acting and wanted to do good work and wants to choose great characters. And it was a slow burn for her as well. And I don't believe it was ever about like fame or ego. She just loves what she does.
Yeah. And she's a great parent too.
Yes.
And she prioritizes her family.
Yes, she does.
She's told funny stories about fame and just being in the grocery store and people wanting photos, and her son just says, it's okay, mommy, they love you. I thought that was really sweet. And I think I see a lot of you in her, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. It's so funny because we have a story about that at Disneyland, because we're very aware of keeping them out of photos.
You're very private about your kids.
Yeah, I am. My husband's being a little bit loosey-goosey lately with his documentary. But yeah, we were at Disneyland, and I was like, can you give us 1 second? Because they were pretty little, and I just wanted to make sure that they were, I wasn't just throwing them into a crowd. And I said, I think I said, I'm really sorry, because it just kind of kept happening. And Axel said the same thing. He was like, it's okay, you're making them happy, or something like that. It was really sweet.
That's very sweet. Watch out, you have another actor on your hands, potentially.
No.
Not if you can help it.
I don't like actors, remember?
Or at least dating them, as far as we know.
Or parenting them.
So we come to ABC's High Potential. Congratulations. Again, giant, giant hit. And just to put in perspective, 13 million people watched the finale. That is, again, almost unheard of in our streaming era.
It's crazy. I don't know why. I'm so grateful.
I mean, again, I think it's comfort viewing. And I've talked a lot about this lately surrounding The Pit on Max. There's something great about these shows that feel somewhat anachronistic. They're procedural, but they're also serialized. So every week is a different episode, but we also get to know these characters and care. And I think there's something so resonant about that. But I know you were reluctant to take this job as well. I see a connection here with these big broadcast shows.
Yeah.
Tell me what worried you about this. Not worried in a negative way, but worried just in terms of your career.
I'll be honest, one of the things that crossed my mind and stayed there for a minute was I have diehard fans who are livid about the Mick being canceled. I still have Sunny, but if I go off and do this network show where I'm like a mom and I'm solving crimes, are they going to be
actually
like...
It's a drama.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And I thought, oh, everyone's going to go, this is your next show? Why are you doing a drama? Why aren't you going to be yelling and screaming and throwing your body around every episode? I just thought I was going to be disappointing them. But I think that's just also ego and me.
But you care about your fans, though.
I do care about my fans, but I also need to stop reading comments. You know what I mean? Like there's a little self-preservation in there. I always said like the key to doing good work is to make yourself, like I need to love what I'm doing, or I need to truly make myself laugh.
You're a
in that
purist.
moment. Yeah. And I'm not in charge of how other people are receiving it. I hope people like it, but I'm just not in charge of that. And I always felt like that with the Mick. If I put out, however many, do we do, let's say 40 episodes of television, I was pretty proud of all of those. So if you attacked any episode of the Mick, I really would be okay with it because I like them.
Right.
So,
but that show was, unlike High Potential, more sort of in line with that sunny, crazy character.
yes.
Whereas this would definitely be a departure.
Yes, and very out of my hands because I don't know how to write a procedural. I definitely can contribute to bringing this character to life, and that was very important to me. But I don't. That was scary.
It's a bigger machine.
It's a bigger machine, and it's very. I like to be in control, and I was very out of control, which is good for me to go outside of my comfort zone like that and surround myself with people who I trust who are good at that. And I wanted it to be very dramatic, and I wanted it to be very funny. But I also wanted it to be. I wanted that family dynamic to work and not feel forced.
So what allayed your fears ultimately?
Ultimately. One thing that helped is that I still had Sunny. It's not like I was moving on from Sunny and this was my next thing only.
You have your comedy cred in your back pocket.
Yeah, I got my comedy thing that I get to do for a part of the year. I was still on Hacks and really proud of that and that character. And this is just another thing. And I really wanted to do something different anyway. The something different that I thought I would do would be much darker comedy and much different character from the Mick or Dee. But I read the script and I fell in love with the pilot. And Drew Goddard wrote something that was so good, and I feel like he really understood this woman, and that's unique and special. I love that she was flawed.
She's trying her best.
She's trying her best. She's scrappy. I really like that. She doesn't rely on anyone else. She doesn't trust very many people. She's going to figure it out at the end of the day, but things are going to be a mess in the process, and she's okay with that. That's very attractive to me. And she's a good mom, and that was very different from any character I played before. Like, she really loves her kids. So I just fell in love with the pilot.
I love that, and we're the better for it. And what has been your biggest adjustment working in this format? It's longer, it's more dialogue. Tell me about learning your lines and how that process has shifted.
I would say that's the biggest difference because everything else is also shot, long days and single camera. But this dialogue is not something I can improvise my way through sometimes.
Not a curb situation.
It's not a curb situation. It's that, and that's still a learning curve. It's full time in that there were no moments where I was not thinking of this show, either memorizing, truly on the way home, try and put it away while I hang out with my kids and put them to bed, and then right back at it. Tinkering around with some of my dialogue, casting. It just you can't really turn it off. Whereas comedy, I can turn it off and on, no problem. Especially Sunny, I don't even look at the lines the night before. I just show up and do it. Check it out in the makeup trailer. This is very hard work, but I anything worth it is, I love hard work, so it's okay.
And what's the nicest thing that you've heard from someone about the show, either a fan or online, or just feedback that has meant a lot to you?
That they love watching it with their daughter, or they love watching it with their dad, or they love watching it with their son or their grandmother. Like, it seems to span generations and genders too. I'm always looking for something that everyone will enjoy, hopefully. That they like watching it with their dad or their kid.
It's the first time that senior citizens have been able to enjoy your work on a mass scale.
Yes, including some of my in-laws.
Now you have a lot more to talk about at the holidays.
We sure do, and it's lovely. Yeah.
Kaitlin, I do love that nice family show you're doing.
Thank God. Finally, you like me. Just kidding.
They've always
we love
loved you,
other,
but
yes.
Sometimes our families don't always understand what we do.
100%.
They don't totally get our
and that's
jobs,
okay,
right?
and that's completely okay, and it doesn't have to be their aesthetic. But it is really nice. It is really nice that they, that they're. Again, I say it only matters if I like it, but of course I want people to like it.
And how have your parents reacted to this new level of recognition that you've had?
My mom and dad are just, anybody who will listen, they'll find a way to be like, oh, is that Kaitlin Olson on that maze? Well, my daughter. Fine, it's my daughter, but it's fine. I mean, really, the posters all over their home. I'm like, you guys, this looks like I'm dead, and you've built a shrine. They're so proud. Aww. They've got me on a Google alert, so I get a lot of emails about stuff I've done and said.
And you're like, I know I said that. I actually did that interview.
I'm the one who did that, but thank you so much. They're just so, the Emmy magazine just came out. I'm on the cover of it. I sent it to them, and they're like, it's even more beautiful in person than online. Like, they're just the sweetest. They're so excited. They're very, very proud.
Half of fame, or whatever word we use to describe it, is really just knowing that other people are happy for us.
Yeah.
It feels, that's kind of half the appeal, I think.
Yes. And knowing that you've, just seeing people's face light up and knowing that you made them
and
happy.
They encouraged you.
Yes.
And a lot of this is because of them, and I think that's so special.
Yes. Yeah. They're everything to me, for sure.
Good people. And moving forward, do you have dream collaborators or dream projects that you sort of have in a drawer somewhere that you'd love to pursue, either a feature or something you've written or want to direct?
Yes. I mean, I was sort of in development on something else when this came along, which was one of the reasons why I was like, no, I'm not going to do an ABC show. I'm going to do.
It's a big commitment.
It's a huge commitment. Yes. And
look at Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Is it that kind of a commitment?
Decades.
Ooh.
Decades long.
Okay.
Get ready.
I'm going to have to wear longer pants. Morgan's going to have to wear, different clothes. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do, especially, I had the privilege of raising my kids and being really a stay-at-home mom for the most part for their childhood, because Sunny we shoot, they're writing and editing, but Danny and I shoot 2 months out of the year. And they were with me on set during that. So, wow. And that was very important to me, the most important thing. And now they're in middle school. I'm still there. I didn't go anywhere. I'm not going to leave them, especially God during middle school.
Oh, no.
But, they're at school all day, and they can understand it, and we can text each other, and I'm there for them if they need me. And it's good for them to see their mom working. It's good for them to see their mom creating things and being successful, and that's important to me too. So yes, there are lots of other things I'd like to do. I just got to find pockets.
Well, in watching Champions, which I hadn't seen until recently, such a sweet movie, but you're a solid female protagonist lead in a feature.
Thank you.
So I'm just saying, I think we need more features out of you.
Okay, thank you. Shout out to all those directors out there.
Yes, she's open. And suffice to say, these are difficult times.
Yes.
All over the world for myriad reasons.
Yes.
Who or what is giving you hope during these difficult times, and something that makes you optimistic for each day when you wake up? This is going to sound super cliche, but it really is my kids. And,
the last time we went through really, really difficult times for me personally was 2016, and my kids were very little, and I was able to shield them from everything that was going on in the world.
Because they were young and they weren't as aware.
Yeah, they were young, and they we just didn't have to have the TV on, and their friends weren't talking about it, and they weren't talking about it in school unless they needed to. And now my kids are very aware of everything that's going on, and we're able to have really beautiful conversations about what that means. And I will say I'm raising 2 white boys, and that's another conversation. And there's a fine line between, these kids are going to go out and they're going to, I have really good people that I'm raising. I don't want little white boys to get the message that they're the problem. I want little white boys to get the message that historically white men have been a real problem. And that's just one of the things that's going on right now. But that's personal to me because I'm responsible for raising very good white men. And I am. And we get to talk about it, and we get to talk about, they go to very diverse schools with lots of stuff going on. So there's a lot of opportunity to talk about people's lives and how they're different, and how every one of them is just as valuable and just as important, and how important it is to take care of each other and look out for the kids who look like they need to be looked out for.
Yeah, and just having, and even living in LA, which is a very dynamic place to live. It's really quite a gift, I imagine, for kids. I loved where we grew up. Wasn't the most diverse place. It was not diverse. And I had to move to New York as a young person and ultimately move here. I really wanted a bigger sense of scope of the type of world that exists. Yeah. So despite its flaws, LA is actually kind of magical for kids to learn about different people.
It really is. And I think about that a lot because I wasn't as aware that we didn't live in a very diverse little town because I hadn't really thought about it. And it's sad that there probably wasn't enough representation on TV to really even spark those conversations as well. And I remember moving here and being like, oh my God, there's so much, and everyone's so different, and there's so many different perspectives. And I'm really happy that I'm raising my kids in a bigger city.
That's great. And they're lucky to have you.
Thank you. I'm lucky to have them.
So my last question is, for all my guests, is the following. What do you hope listeners take away from your Hollywood story, Kaitlin? And what have you learned about yourself in sharing it with us today?
I hope that everyone just feels like they have something special to contribute, whether they think they do or not, despite anything that they've been through, and that you follow your dreams based on what it is that you want to do and not based on what, you think you're supposed to do. I got really lucky with parents who encouraged me to do that. Things probably would have been different if they were different. But somewhere along the way, I learned that I have to make myself proud instead of making everyone else proud. And so I guess that would be the message I certainly want my kids to know. So I guess you guys too.
And what have you learned about yourself in sharing the story with us?
That being vulnerable is hard.
Have you felt vulnerable today?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know what? This is what I've learned. I am much more comfortable when I am answering a question in the form of a joke, and it's a deflection. But that's not true. In one-on-one, you know what it is? I'm going to change that. I feel like what people want from me is just to make them laugh. I feel like, oh, I'm just supposed to get up here and perform for you.
Like the clown.
Like the clown. And if I'm authentic and serious, like I am with my friends, one-on-one, or my family, I'm still funny, guys, one-on-one. But if I'm just authentic, that it's like, oh, it's boring, and make us laugh or just fall off a stool or something like that. So I think I'm still learning about that about myself as well.
Well, you on your own is enough. You're an amazing person, and Portland is very proud of you.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you have enjoyed such success, and you really do deserve it. And I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
having me. Thank you so much.
It was really nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. My Hollywood Story is a production of Hippolyta Films and Entertainment. It is produced by me, Stacey Wilson Hunt, along with Sonia Slutsky and Wendy Green. Series producers also include Daryl Young and Janet Grayson. Our sound mixer is Luke Tierney, with camera by Ramiro Cantu. My Hollywood Story is edited by Nathaniel Wixon, with original music by Madi Gabriel and Jenny Carr of Moon and Star. Our logo design is by Brad Mitchell, and I'd like to give a special thanks to Champion Turf. My Hollywood Story is sponsored by Mattel Films and recorded at Neue House Hollywood. If you like what you hear, give us a follow, leave a review, and let us know what you think.